Subscribe to the fl0m Clips and Highlights channel. We are so back. Roster move time, which means the Clips and Highlights channel will be feasting. If you're not subscribed, you're just dumb at this point because it's just easy info. So we got Falcons benching Magisk. Longest serving player will never be on the starting roster, and it's for Kyoske. But we'll talk a little bit about Magisk first. I think at this point, we kind of all knew this was happening, and it was probably going to be Magisk. But I do think Magisk at the end, I don't know if it's because he knew he was going to be taken off the roster or what. I feel like he actually stepped it up a lot. He was a big reason why they were doing well, I would say, in like bigger moments. Because some of these finals, man, that they played, I feel like he was doing really well. Let me see if my memory serves me. Yeah, I mean, like for their anchor player, right? Like not bad. Not bad for their anchor player right there. And then hold on, if I remember this final right, like literally second highest rated rifler, and he was just behind Modesty. Like this is, I think when it comes to what they were doing as a squadron, this one was bad. Oh yeah, this one was really bad. I remember he was a liability in this game. This is when this is the nuke comeback. This was probably the most painful one. I feel like the difference in Magisk here and Magisk here was not just because of the stat line, but I feel like he noticeably looked more confident in his individual plays because he was probably just like focusing on it more. I think for him though, I think he'll get another offer on a team if he wants. I just wonder if he actually wants to play for anyone, right? He doesn't have Zonic anymore. Astralis? Like it's just kind of Astralis, right? I really do feel like that's his only option, if it even is an option. And who would that be for? Stairs? Stairs their best rifler. That would actually be so dumb. I would hope it's not for Stairs, so it can't be Stair, right? Like, Haruk has a rumored player already. G2, maybe. There's I think Magisk has proven, especially like I said, in those last stints as like an anchor, that he's definitely serviceable as an anchor. Is he serviceable, or should he be on a top 5 tier 1 Counter-Strike team right now? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think he's shown that he should be doing that. But that doesn't mean he can't get, like, if he can make that jump that he made from one final to another, I think he can continue to make that jump. It just depends on how bad he wants it and how much time he's willing to put in and the right situation. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's good enough to be like on a top 15 team, but I think any of these top 5 teams that are like pushing for championships, yeah, you're not going to see him anywhere in there. And then it's kind of going to be interesting what he wants to do, because he's been around Zonic his entire career since he joined Astralis. So not having that like familiar face around, he's going to have to walk into a brand new environment on a worse team with worse price. Some, like, when I say this, it's not to insult whatever team he joins, but some of the worst players he's probably played with in like the last 10 years. Okay, 10 years a little grand, but he was Prime Astralis, won a major with Vitality, and was playing with Nico and Modesty on Falcons to end his time on Falcons. Wherever he goes, it's just going to feel so bad for him. Like, it's going to be so odd. Let's talk about the next part, though, which is going to be Kyoske. Hold on. All right, so Falcons signed Kyoske. We're all surprised. Yeah, the roles are fucked. You don't want to go full role sell and, like, be obsessed with them to the point where, you know, you're saying you shouldn't get him, but at the same time, like, this almost, I think Kyoske is better than Grim, and I'm not trying to be a delusional NA fanboy, but I do think this actually reminds me of the Grim to Liquid signing. Like that's what this reminds me of, which is not a good sign for Kyoske. I do think the difference is, I think like Nico's already kind of mentored different players along in his career, and I think people really overlook this. Nico is, I think he tweeted it or something, and maybe we can have the editor pull it up, but you know, he's talking about like, you know, got to show another kid the ropes type thing is basically the sentiment of the tweet. I think this can work. I think will work just based off of sheerly firepower alone. I would imagine the way that things are going to happen is Tessus is going to anchor, because he did it quite a bit for Heroic at different times. But I think the most likely scenario is probably Tessus is going to anchor, and then Kyoske is going to take over. Well, I don't think it's like as simple as like you do this now and you do that. But I imagine Tessus is going to pick up a lot of Magisk roles, and I imagine Kyoske is going to get some of Tessa's. Maybe Nico will also pick up some of the anchor roles. Funny enough, I could see that. Maybe. It depends on what the team thinks is best and how much they want to facilitate Kyoske and how much this is going to be hell, in the sense that you want everybody to be comfortable, but also you need to realize that some people are going to have to make sacrifices. And I think Kyoske should not get all the keys to the castle, in the sense that I don't think he should get every position he wants to play because indirectly that's going to put a lot of pressure on him. I think he should try to learn some new roles. I think they should like try to find a balance. I hope that that's what they do. I think that's the only way this roster comes together and has a real shot. I do just feel like that doing this pure firepower route though, just I don't know if it really works, man. We'll see. If this team had like a core identity of how they played and wanted to play and had like success doing it, I would have a lot more faith in like going this route. But what people forget, they kind of reference Vitality when they look at this roster, but Vitality had a core and then over time added players that perfectly made sense for every single gap that they had and were just adding on to what they have already built, where Falcons isn't adding on to something they've already built. They're taking things away and then like trying to reconfigure everything all at once, which is just really hard to do. There's so many moving pieces where like the amount of variables that Apex and Vitality had to manage and change, and not to say it was easy, just they did it in a much more intelligent way. This just gives super team vibes in terms of how much firepower you have. And usually what ends up happening with super teams is they shoot really hard. They have inconsistency in results because they rely entirely on shooting really hard. And then when they don't, things start to fade away. The shininess of the roster goes away. People get frustrated. Nobody wants to make that sacrifice because you don't have those types of players necessarily. Or you have like a little bit of that element, but not enough to facilitate like an actual team willing to play all the positions and roles to like the ability that they need to be. I think, yeah, for me, the bigger thing, and let me see if I can pull up the rumor. We'll see how much of this is true. KRL sometimes, I think, gets a lot of insider information. And what's crazy is I think KRL is usually accurate, but he talks about everything he's hearing it as he hears it. And I don't think you guys realize how much people like think about all the different scenarios, basically. Some of these I think are like early thoughts and considerations, but not necessarily things that'll all be acted on. There we go. Here's the Spirit part. Regarding Spirit, they want to make 2 changes, with Perfecto being the first one added into the roster, and it would be free for them, obviously, who's replacing currently unknown. So the 3 pieces that can't move on Spirit are Chopper, Shiro, Donk. So Zontix and Magisk, also an add is incoming, are both replaceable. It's play-by-play roster considerations from KRL. Yeah, he gets a lot of information in real time, and he doesn't really filter it or vet it. And usually I would say, like I said, a lot of them are initial impressions or at least correct, but they don't always necessarily, like G2 might want to get Nerds, but it's like he's on the short list of people that they want, but that might not be realistic. See, because see, you get what I'm saying? Like shit like that. Like there's a lot of things in there, but I do think that I wanted to talk about this where I just can't believe Spirit is willing to sell Kyoske when they know they're going to be replacing people. Oh, okay. If you weren't replacing anyone and you wanted to sell them, fair play. You know what? Like people might not agree with it. People might think that you're stupid. People might think like this is unbelievable. But like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? Like what? Like actually though, why would you do that? I don't understand why you would willingly give up such a crazy asset when you know you're going to be replacing someone. I mean, I know money, obviously, money talks, and I'm sure it was a big buyout, although I think somebody said the Falcons CEO came out and said that the rumors of it being at like 2 million were completely false. Who knows how much it was? I'm sure it was a lot, and that's all that matters, right? I'm sure it's more than most, but I don't know much about Spirit's financials, but it never seemed like an org, especially with their Dota International wins and shit like that. And honestly, Spirit has always seemed a really well put together org, believe it or not. I know they're not as crazy of an organization for us, I feel like, in NA, like watching, but to me, they've always seemed really put together. So it just seems like they don't need the money, maybe. And that's also where I'm confused. Yeah, like I said, the CEO of Falcons said that it wasn't 2 million and that it was very far off. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's just like the idea of, because if you're an organization like Spirit, if 1 or 2 million is the difference, they got a lot bigger problems than I ever expected. Can we like I know that kind of sounds crazy, guys, but if the year that, like, let's just say the buyout was 1 million instead of 2 million, like that means that org has some crazy problems, but I don't think they do. That's why, I don't know. Spirit, why are you doing this? I think also part of me is just like tired of seeing Falcons buying everything. It's like I feel like half the clips and highlights channel is just like Falcons has bought this person today. So maybe that's where some of my animosity is coming from. But if you're back to Spirit, it just seems so crazy that, you know, if they weren't making changes, this is fair play. And I might be critiquing that. But if you're making changes, why not give this kid a shot who you've had in your academy team, like just putting up numbers the whole time and trying to make that work? I don't. Well, I think the reason why G2 didn't make a bid on the Kyoske, which that comment came from chat, is I think the reason G2 didn't is for the obvious reason. If Falcons is interested and it's a money situation, they won't win, right? Like it's just it's just a waste of time. Like, oh, Falcons is interested. Wow, we have some money that Falcons just gave to us. And it's like, well, that's cool and all, but no one gives a fuck. They're gonna be able to just put the number higher and higher and higher. Is there a possible situation where Donk doesn't want to play with him? I think they play together a lot, so I don't think so. I could be wrong though. But anyway, I think Falcons are going to have to do something which we don't see very often or really at all, which is now that they've done like super team route with the firepower. Sorry, I combined the both words in my head there. They need to do what no team's done before, which is actually reconfigure itself and make it all come together under new circumstances, which usually has not worked in the past. Like I said, you know, I think the comparison earlier would be like Vitality, but Vitality had a core, had a vision, had an identity, a way they wanted to play, and then they kept making perfect additions that perfectly just added on and slotted into what they were doing. This, people have to make sacrifices. People have to change their roles and positions and how they're playing. Like Tesses will probably change a lot. Nico will probably change a little bit. Kyoske is going to change a little bit. And then you have to make sure that all of them perform at their highest level, which is good luck. Because I've seen Zonic basically just say some insert new excuse here every time a roster does poorly. I can't wait for him to say that he doesn't want these players or something. Or I can't wait for like the tweet like, we have too much firepower, bro. I can't wait for that. That's going to be cinema.